What's up, you guys? Thank you so much for joining me today on the meditation channel. Hi, how are ya? So I have decided to make this series. I'm trying to make a video every week essentially on the lessons that I have learned every week. I don't want to come on here and say that I am an expert at anything. I am certainly a student of life. I am constantly learning, constantly growing, constantly trying to expand my knowledge of the universe, of manifestation, of spirituality. And I really thought that it would be fun and hopefully helpful to some of you out there when I share some of the things that I have learned. And it's kind of like also like a recap for me, just to essentially highlight the biggest lesson of the week. Now, I have been wanting to make some sort of upgrade for next year. I have made goals this year, and I just realized that there's got a spray bottle here. I realized that I have manifested all my intentions by June, July, maybe August. I had essentially manifested everything, and most of us would say, yay, congratulations, you've done a great job. And essentially what happened was, by that time of the month, I was disappointed because I had nothing else to drive me for the rest of the year. Of course, I always have goals, I always have things, I'm a very driven person, but I noticed what happened is like that zest for life, that drive for life essentially diminished a little bit for me. And I learned something from this, that I have to give myself much bigger goals, much bigger goals. I have to up the scales a little bit, because what I did was all things that I knew I could achieve, and I did achieve them because I'm a hard worker, I'm focused, and of course I apply everything that I teach everybody. So what I'm trying to say, I think, today is that, you know, sometimes we think we want something, and once we get it, it's never, I mean, yeah, you have that second of excitement, but then what? Then you're back to a blank slate. So what I've been doing lately essentially is I've been listening to Justin Thoreau. I hope I'm saying his name right. I'll put a little picture of him up here, and he's just popped up in my algorithm. And I've been learning a lot from him. So very interesting enough, he talks a lot about this brotherhood. Essentially, it's a secret society that he was a part of, that he started to basically share information on manifesting, on everything that you need to know about manifestation. And I am very much focused on this. This year had been the year of manifestation. As I've said, I've manifested everything this year, except for one thing. There's always that one goal that I cannot seem to manifest, usually throughout my list, but that's okay. This is why I'm talking about Justin Thoreau, because there's always something to learn, there's always something to expand and grow, and there is always something to heal. Now, he talked about essentially, when you think about manifestation, it's really kind of simple, but in that simplicity, there is complexities. There are three things that you need to manifest. The first one is to become before it actually is. So let's just say I want to become a famous actress. I have to start believing, acting, thinking, emanating the frequency of somebody who's already a famous actress, who's very successful, however that container holds. The next one is action. Once I start believing, I got to start taking action within that reality. So I start behaving and doing things that a famous actress would do. I would start going to auditions. I would start maybe trying to get a better agent. I would start putting materials out there around it. I would try to find directors and films and TV shows that are out there, whatever that may be. And then the third one essentially is it's given to you. So once you apply these two rules perfectly to the T, then the outside cannot help but to give that to you. So essentially there's a time of delusional living in Delulu land, where you're creating this reality from the inside out first. And that's really challenging for a lot of us, because we need the evidence from the outside in order to motivate us to continue. And I have worked a lot on not attaching myself to the outcome. Of course, I'm human. There are some things, like I said, this one thing probably that I want the most is the one thing that I cannot make happen because there's attachment. I want the evidence of it. And so that's essentially where we're going to do some healings. But today, when I was going through Justin's materials, essentially one of the things he talked about a lot, which I agree with, there is also such a thing as family lineage, family trauma, self-sabotage, blocks, subconscious patterns essentially that are within us that block us from success. There was a time in my life where my acting career was taking off. I am an actor on the side, by the way, as well. So I was doing amazing. I got the best agent. I was on a TV show. I was moving up in my career. Opportunities were showing up, and I was not aware of what I was doing at the time that I am now. I had no clue of this manifestation and all this sort of stuff. So I was literally just subconsciously aware of it because I knew I was focused and I was believing that this is what I deserved. But at the same time, I did not have the knowledge that I have today, which of course I wish I did at the time because I would have approached it very differently. And when I look back around this self-sabotaging behavior, that was the very thing that made my career go down. And for those of you who know me, I developed addiction and mental health issues very young in my youth, which I've healed from now. But I had an addiction, and this addiction, of course, changes your frequency. When you are absorbing a substance in your body, it changes your frequency, it influences your mind, which influences your emotions, which of course have a ripple effect on your actions. And that became suddenly my obsession over acting. My obsession was to wake up in the morning and use the substance as opposed to working on a script or reading or going to an acting class. And naturally, that shifted me away from my desire and it moved me into something else. And I even remember very clearly to this day, I had a big audition. I was going for a film called Son of a Gun. And I was in the audition room and I was going for the supporting role with Ian McGregor was in there, which was a big, big opportunity. And I remember to this day in that audition room, a voice in my head said something like, and I can't remember exactly what it said, but I remember the feeling of it is like, you don't deserve this, or you're gonna F up this audition, or essentially it was a negative voice that literally came in and sabotaged the audition. And I believed it. I believed that voice. And I really think now, looking back, that voice was a manifestation of what I had been subconsciously building up deep down, that even though I was creating this life, there was still this part of me that did not believe that I was worthy, that did not think that I was enough. I had real issues back then as well around people, around connecting with people and society in general. I was very bad at being human. The best way that I can put it. I was not good with emotions. I was not good in social situations. I was very socially awkward, very socially odd. I didn't know how to connect with people. I had my moments, of course, but in general, I always was just weird. And I just did not know how to be. And I think all of this stems from this seed of unworthiness and just feeling like this was all an accident. Even though I had been focusing, I'd been working very hard. At the time, I was working extremely hard to build my acting career because I really loved it. I genuinely loved it. It, coming from that depression and that sadness, acting was the one thing that made me feel connected and alive, and it gave me purpose and clarity, and it was just ecstasy for me. So, long story short, my career just fell apart when I moved to the US. My manager passed away. I lost all contacts. I had to start from scratch. And I'm building it again now. I'm working on it. But I've noticed that I still now have, over the years, now I have all this wounding connected to acting. Whereas before I didn't have that when I was building it. It was all fresh and new. And now I've got all these woundings and all of these scars that I built up along the way. And so what I realize now is that this has become my new self-sabotage, but ultimately I think it really comes down to the core of it, which is the original wounding. So what I'm essentially trying to say today is that sometimes when we're working very hard to manifest something, we also need to look at the resistance, the parts of us that maybe from childhood, maybe, we've been trying to manifest something for a very long time and it hasn't been happening. And why? Because maybe there's some wounding, there's some resentment, there's some anger, there's negative frequency inside that manifestation now. And of course, if you're going to try and manifest, it's going to be very difficult because subconsciously, it's a bad thing now. It's not a good thing anymore. This thing is not serving me and my higher purpose and my greatest cause. It's now become a problem, and it could become a problem in my future. So looking at whatever it is that you're trying to manifest right now, the first thing I want you to ask yourself is, are you being it? Are you waking up every morning and believing that you are in that reality? So the first step is like becoming it despite what the outside world is showing. Can you live in that fantasy in your mind and that frequency and that emotion? Let's just say you want to manifest a multi-million-dollar home. You're looking at your house now, and I lived in the tiniest apartments ever that any human should do. In Japan, where they have like those rooms that basically the person's like that. That's kind of like what I've lived in, not now. And I, again, always dreamt of having a bigger place and all that sort of stuff. So if I was back there now, which I'm doing now with my home, I have a beautiful home right now, but I want to upgrade the size of the house. So one of the things I do is, walking in with gratitude and blessing your home, blessing every moment, pretending like it's a giant house. I did this when I manifested my car, my dream car. So quantum leaping, essentially, I would like to define it as. The next thing is taking action, stepping, into that reality as if it exists, behaving in such a way as if it already exists, despite of what's coming at you, what's coming against you. And then, of course, the third one is receiving. And I think what happened with me in my acting career, I blocked the receiving because I didn't really feel like I was completely worthy of it. So again, when that blessing, when that person, when that opportunity shows up, you got to walk in with that high frequency. And I did not. I walked in with the low frequency, the damaged, the wounded, the heart, the broken part of me, because that maybe could have been my biggest breakthrough in my career. And I sabotaged it because deep down, my lack frequency was actually overriding now my worthy frequency. So we have to really be self-aware around this, guys. And oftentimes it's easier said than done, but checking in with yourself and essentially having a routine and goals that help you to keep focused and centered every day is the key. So going back to the beginning of this video where I was talking about, my year and noticing that I achieved my goals too quickly, I need to up my game for next year. You gotta think bigger. And once you think bigger, then you gotta bring it back to reality though, of course. So I want to think bigger next year. I'm going to think about things that maybe I'm going to achieve or focus on, especially that one thing that I didn't get this year, which was a certain amount of money to make every month. But I've achieved other things that I'm still very proud of and very happy of course, because I've achieved, 99% of my goals this year. But that one thing that I feel like it can, again, get me to the next step. So think bigger and really set a plan that essentially helps you keep focused. You're gonna get challenged. You're gonna face obstacles. There are gonna be things that are gonna get in the way. And one thing that Thoreau was talking about, which I thought was really, really cool, is that he got arrested. Whole conspiracy theory thing, of course, which I do believe him. He got arrested basically for sharing the secrets. If you look into it, it's very interesting. And when he got arrested, apparently he was not emotionally reactive to it, because deep down he was like, well, this is great. There's a reason for this. And long story short, in the interview, he was talking about how when he got arrested, it gave him the opportunity to liquidate all of his businesses and write all of these books that he wanted to write. And of course, he has a multi-millionaire mindset. So he's like, doesn't matter if I liquidate these businesses, I can build them again. Something better, and it's going to give me time to have peace, reflect in prison, and then come back with a bang, which is what he did. So the other thing that I want to remind you of as well is, like, when you have a wealthy mindset, the obstacle, the challenges, the bad things that are coming at you are essentially a maya, a disguise. If we could have an attitude of gratitude, an abundant mindset, which is, again, imagine if you had everything that you already had despite of what's coming at you, that's not a problem. You would even almost see it as a gift, even though it's disguised as a curse. Almost. I know this is a hard one to wrap your head around, because there are some things, of course, that are a lot more challenging than others. I think he even said that he got sued at one year and something else came up. But again, they see it as there's a reason for this. There's a purpose behind it that I cannot see or understand right now, but I know it's good for me. And the other thing that he talked about as well is not only about like all these 3 steps, but the energy that we manifest in. So I believe we're in beta frequency all the time. So when we want to manifest, this is why meditation is very powerful. And if you haven't already, check out my meditations, guys. You want to be in between theta and alpha and theta waves. Something in between those two, he called it the millionaire mind. And that is where you manifest the most. So essentially theta is like a meditative state, a hypnotic state. And alpha, I'm not quite sure. I guess it's a step down from there. So you want to be right in between those two. So again, it doesn't just mean having the focus and all that sort of stuff, but when you're thinking and visualizing about the very thing that you want, be in a certain energy frequency, be in a certain mind state, in a mindful state where you are emanating this frequency. And essentially, this is the energy that you're rippling out into the universe. And this is what you're telling the universe that you are now. And it has no other option but to give it back. So, having said all this is what I'm going to focus on for next year for sure. We're coming at the end of the year. So this is a great time, guys, by the way, to review your year, to think about what are your plans for next year. And you want to be way ahead of that, right? You don't want to do this at the last minute at New Year's Eve. What am I going to do for next year? You want to do it now. You want to think ahead. You want to be prepared. You want to be ready so that you can make this plan and really take it seriously. You know, sometimes with the manifestation, this is why I'm not a big fan of vision boards and all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying that it doesn't work. It's just not my thing. I'm open to it at some point. Maybe I've done it before. It just didn't work for me. I'm all about being and physicalizing and emotionally and visualizing and I have post-it notes on my mirror in my bathroom with all of my goals every year. And that's my vision board, if you like, because I can see exactly what my goals are and that's how I achieve them. But you got to figure out what works for you. Here's the other thing, right? So if you're making a plan, you got to really think about what works for me. How can I set the room up or my space up in such a way where it's inspiring me, where it reminds me of this goal, of this practice, of this daily focus. So my daily meditations, my affirmations, my goal setting, but I need to add something extra in there, I think now, to essentially amplify and really be laser focused on the next phase in my future and the next phase in 2026 for me. So leave a comment below and let me know, guys, if there are any goals that you're focusing on, any practices that you know that have helped you, because I know there's going to be somebody down there who's going to read that and going to think, oh yeah, that's amazing. That's a cool practice. I am yet to discover more. I'm in constant study, like I said, so I'm going to continually sit down here with you guys and talk about all of these ideas and visions and information that I'm downloading, and hopefully it has an aha moment for you. But I also want you guys to share and build up a community here. You know, this is why I'm here. I really want us to connect and help each other succeed, because there's nothing more beautiful than that, I think. Whew. All right, guys. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you have a wonderful and magical day, and I will see you soon. Bye.